Hi Facebook fans, Dr. Tim McGuinness here with Debby Montgomery. We're beginning our live feed and we're just about to be interviewed by German television. So we're going to let you eavesdrop and listen in as we are online live with our interview with German public television. So sit back, enjoy the show. We're trying to connect with Germany right now.
Okay, so I'm calling them. Let's see if she answers us. You want to hide that?
What? Hide what?
The, Hi! Yep.
Turn your volume up a bit, a lot.
I can see you. Can
Perfect.
you see me?
Yes.
Yes, hello!
And you hear me?
Yes.
We don't hear you. We don't hear you.
Your microphone on?
I don't know.
We can't hear you.
One moment.
Huh?
Can you hear us?
Camera on. Do you have your microphone off?
No.
Maybe?
No.
It's this. Yeah. No?
Can you hear me? Hang on.
Click on microphone. Okay, don't click that.
No, I wasn't hearing
How about the word?
We tried to connect you.
Hang on.
We tried to connect you.
I'm going to undo it.
Can you hear us?
We can't hear you.
Click on the microphone on the left.
Yeah. So that
Turns it off.
unmutes.
Let's try to call one more time. Disconnect and recall.
Okay. Where is the?
We have problem. We don't hear you.
We'll call you right back. We'll call you back. Hang on.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna call here. Do I want to check here though for my settings?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Now we can hear you.
Very good.
Oh, very good. Great. Yes, it's me. I'm Petra.
Hi, Petra.
Petra. Hi. Hi.
Okay, so this is Debby Montgomery,
Yes.
and I'm Dr. Tim McGuinness.
Ah, okay. Nice to see you. And here is Christina. She is the victim I told you, and she is my main character in the reportage in my documentary.
Okay.
Yes. I would like, because I'm not in the documentary, I'm not the person, it's Christina, so I would like that I'm going out then and to talk to her, and I'm in background.
Okay.
But, I have two guys here, one at the camera, I have two cameras here, so we will do it on tape right now for the documentary. Is it okay for you? Yes?
I have a question.
Yes?
My question is, give us an idea of how you want this to be structured. So are you looking for a dialogue with Christina? Are you looking for background information?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so maybe we start with talking about scams in general, and then we can lead into Christina's experience.
That was my plan.
That's very good. Because I told Petra from start that you are in the internet, international, in Australia, Europe, and USA, and you have.
Christina gave me the tip.
You have.
I discovered you with the help of Christina.
Yes, you have worked him.
So, and after this, Debby could tell her story.
Okay.
I think you have a very interesting story, so maybe you can tell us some words about your story.
Sure.
Maybe we can begin by letting me explain a little bit about who SCARS is, what the organization is, and what we do on the world stage.
Great. Then I'll go in the background and you will talk to Christina, and I'm going out of the cameras.
Okay.
So have a nice interview.
Okay.
Bye. See you later.
See you later, and she has with my very bad English. Sorry for this. Because I know from your group since a long time, and you make very good work, and we make reportage now in Germany.
Eine Sache, ich muss kurz die Kamera auf den Laptop einstellen. Das
Okay.
heißt, sobald es eingestellt ist, den Laptop nicht mehr bewegen am besten, weil sonst die Schärfe verloren geht.
I can't, but I can't hear
Ja,
that.
du kannst mal reden.
You might want to turn your webcam downward a little bit because it's cutting off half of Christina's face. That's better.
That's better? Okay.
Yeah. But you can also turn the camera down a little bit.
Okay, wait, better?
Yes,
Yes.
better. Much better.
That's better now.
Okay, so
because I'm very grateful that cars help now make in Eurotage and help in Germany too. And help in Germany too, and help in Europe, and you help in Australia, and you're a really big organization for help people which are scamming.
exactly.
What can scars do against scammers?
Peter asked me, what can scars do against scammers? Can you help that the police work together more? Can you help that the states work together? Or this is a real big problem for me, because I have made
Okay, let me start by explaining what SCARS is and what we were created to do and how we function. SCARS is a registered crime victims assistance organization. That means that we're registered with the United States government through an entity known as the National Centers for Victims of Crime. We're also registered with an agency that is part of the United States Department of Justice called the Office for Victims of Crime. We're listed in a directory called victimconnect.org, which is the United States Directory of Victims Assistance Organizations. Why does this matter? In the world of scams, there are basically victims, then there are the businesses that enable scamming, and then there are the scammers themselves. Now, unfortunately, many victims, once they become a victim, decide that they are experts in the subject matter because they've been the victim of a crime. Unfortunately, that's just not true. That's unfortunately something that's quite natural. Victims want to learn about the subject matter, but it doesn't mean that they're automatically prepared to develop support programs or to work with governments or to do the hard, heavy lifting necessary to change this situation. So in the online world, there are literally tens of thousands of amateur, pretender support groups, we call them anti-scam hate groups, that claim to be experts in the world of scams. But the reality is that what they do is they gather victims together and continue to increase their anger and rage and hate by continually focusing on pictures of scammers, and the result is that it does nothing. Now, I started my involvement in the world of scams 28 years ago. 28 years ago, I was a senior officer of a company that I co-founded here in the United States called TigerDirect.com. It's a multi-billion-dollar e-commerce electronics retailer. And when I put the company up on to services like America Online and CompuServe, I noticed a phenomenon that was beginning to take place, that people were talking about different kinds of scams, email scams, and in '91 I saw the first mentions of romance scams. And I began to monitor and watch this as the years went by. I saw in 2001 how extreme this was becoming by the activity of Al-Qaeda that earned a great portion of their revenues from online scams, specifically romance scams operating out of Afghanistan and Western Europe, Holland, for example. And I was a participant in bringing down an Al-Qaeda cell in 2001 that was involved in romance scams, but also were plotting assassinations, particularly the Dutch Queen at that point in time. So at that point in time, I started a much more active activity to monitor romance scams and the effect that they were having on victims. For many years, it was not precisely clear as to what the root causes were or how best to combat this. So in 2015, I founded SCARS. The purpose of SCARS is really three things. One, to assist and support scam victims, romance scam victims being the primary type that we support. The second is to educate victims and prospective victims about the nature of scams, how to not only avoid them the first time, but also how to avoid being scammed again and again. Because through our studies, we have found that more than 50% of scam victims will actually be scammed more than once. And then the last part is to act as an advocate, to lobby government and to work with government on real solutions to the problem. Now, you asked about government solutions. We're a direct affiliate partner of many U.S. government agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security. We're a partner in their cyber criminal avoidance campaigns. I mentioned that we're a victims assistance organization with working and affiliated with the Department of Justice and other entities. We are a member of the National Organization for Victims Assistance. We're also affiliated with Europol and the Council of Europe's Octopus initiative to end cyber crimes. We've done work with Russia's FSB, Chinese Ministry of State Security. In fact, in 2018, we were instrumental in helping to achieve the arrest of over 3,000 scammers in China alone. In addition, we collaborate through a service that we provide. One of the problems that exists in the world of scams is how victims report scams to government agencies. It's very inefficient, and when reports are made, those reports stay in what we call a single silo. In other words, when a report is made to the FBI, it goes into the FBI into a black box, and no one ever sees that report again. The FBI may investigate, but most of the time they don't. Over 99% of the cases reported to the FBI are not investigated. So the result is there have been no information sharing across the world. In 2015, I invested in the creation of a global data clearinghouse for scam information. We call that SCARS CDN, Cybercrime Data Network. And it collects cybercrime data reported by victims 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year into our own massive big data database. But it distributes that data to any agency or government or entity that wants to receive that data absolutely free of charge. All they have to do is send us a request, and we will set them up on our feed. And they're receiving then real-time data of every scam that is reported on our website, anyscam.com or romancescamsnow.com or any of the other 80 or 90 other places on the internet where scams can be reported, including on Facebook. So the result is that the way in which we work on solving the problem of scams is really several-fold. One, we created this large-scale data reporting network to provide real-time scam data to governments, police, entities around the world, free of charge. Two, we're working with law enforcement directly by feeding them information about scams that need to be addressed directly through the FBI's InfraGard and other entities in that process, so that they can more aggressively take action on specific cases, bypassing the reporting process. And then lastly, working with governments, specifically the United States government, who is typically the leader in cybercrime laws, to develop new laws and develop new treaties to allow for better collaboration between law enforcement agencies. We have a confidential program in place right now with the law enforcement agency and the government of Nigeria. We're in dialogue with the government of Ghana right now on ways in which they can repurpose their citizens who are involved in cybercrimes in other more productive ways. But the fact is that for a very long time, nothing was being done. For example, in the period 2008 through 2016, 8 years, a total of 400 scammers were arrested in 8 years. But in 2018, over 21,000 scammers were arrested last year alone. So real progress is being made, and it's being made fast. In 2016, I sat down with candidate Donald Trump to talk about the problem. I was supposed to have 5 minutes, but I ended up with 45. So the result is that real progress, and this current administration is making a very significant commitment to solve these problems. New laws, new executive orders, a new task force was formed last fall to address these problems. We published this information on our Romance Scams Now website. Are you okay, Christina?
Okay. Yes. You shock me in the moment. Because I hear that you make against scam nothing in the USA too. You shock me. You shock me.
No. You misunderstood.
They make in Germany nothing. They make in the UK nothing, and I'm really shocked.
No, you misunderstood. Christina, you misunderstood. 21,000 scammers were arrested last year. So a great deal is being done. And our organization supports victims worldwide. We have members of our board of directors in Ireland, in Greece, in Hungary, for example, in Australia, Canada, the United States. We have our own office in China. So we're doing a great deal. In addition, our organization has developed the only real victims recovery programs to help victims exactly like you get through this process. It is not easy, and it takes time, and it is very, very traumatic. We're working with universities around the world to more completely understand the psychology of scams and how it affects victims like yourself. How long did your scam go on for?
How long was started 2016? 2006, and I lost not so much our woman by your side. I lost 130,000 euro from my house because I was 23 years marriage, and then the marriage is broken, and then I fall in the scammer problem.
Would it surprise you if you learned that scammers are using court databases to actually look for divorce?
And I know. I have made a really big mistake after my separate from my ex because I was on Facebook for radio station, and then I have wrote there I'm separate, and then came the scammers. If I have wrote separate,
yes,
came the scammers, but before not. So long my status was marriage, no man wrote me, and if I wrote I'm separate, then came some scammers, and it came many scammers. It came many scammers, not one.
yes.
It came so much. Came fake FBI, came fake Interpol. First they stole the scammer the money, and then came scammer say, I'm from Interpol, I'm from the FBI, I will help you, that you became back your money. And it was, I don't know. I have only one person in the USA which have helped a little bit, who have looked where goes the way for my money.
Sadly, when did all of this end? When did it stop? When did you stop the scams?
When I stop?
Stop.
No, I stopped. We have we have stopped not today. We have not stopped because we don't have money. Because the one scammer wrote me from time to time if I can help him. The one scammer where I lost so much. He had nothing, and he blocked me from time to time, and he wrote me hi if you are nothing, and then he come again and asked again for money. So the scams never stops. So I have made complaints against this scammer in Germany, in the UK, and now in the USA.
Where did you send your money? To what country did the money actually go?
USA.
Okay. So
USA.
the way these scams work is victims just like you are convinced by the scammer that they have a business activity and that they need to send money to that person, and then they will send it to them in Africa. So what happened with your money is it would have gone to a mule, a money mule. And that person actually isn't a scammer, they're a victim who also believes the scammer's story and is receiving the money and then sending it onward to the scammer in Africa or Indonesia or Malaysia or wherever the scammer actually happens to be. Unfortunately, there are thousands of romance scam victims who are turned into mules. I had a conversation with the FBI last week, and they told me they believe that there's about 16,000 scam victims who are receiving money currently. I actually believe it's larger because in the United States we have over 5 million romance scam victims. There are over 25 million romance scam victims worldwide. And that's just in the last 10 years. We don't actually know the true number. But we do know, based upon just the interaction with our one website, that we interact with over 5 million victims a year on just one of our websites. So we know this is an extremely large problem. But there's two big parts of this problem. One is the reaction by the police, especially there in Germany. Here in the United States, it's getting better, but very, very slowly. Worldwide, we know how long it took for police departments to professionalize, to become professional in the care of victims of other kinds of violence, and to be understanding and to develop victim support activities within their police department. But when it comes to scams, the officers do not understand this problem. They don't understand how completely manipulated victims are. And the level of manipulation is equal to anything that the Soviet Union ever invented. This is very severe manipulation, and victims are powerless to prevent it most of the time. It's not a question of intelligence. Smart people, like Debbie, can be victimized just as easily as anyone. So don't think of yourself as dumb. Dumb people actually don't get scammed. Smart people get scammed. The other part of the problem is that the longer the scam goes on, the stronger the manipulation. Unfortunately, when you discover it's a scam, it's extremely traumatic. Scam victims suffer from a wide variety of mental health problems, and these are very real problems that require care and attention. You have the problem of realizing that someone that you loved was not real. So that's like if someone that you loved died. So you're going to go through all of the stages of grief. But then you also have, as a result of this manipulation, as a result of the scam, all of the hormonal reactions in the brain that cause addiction-like symptoms. So it's physical, not just psychological. And you have to go through this withdrawal, the physical withdrawal, as well as the psychological withdrawal. And it takes time. The average scam victim needs between 1 and 2 years to recover. It's not overnight. And then the financial recovery can take, the average is 4 years, but it can be for some people forever because they lose their homes, they lose their pensions, they become homeless. Those victims never recover. So the sad truth is that we're here, SCARS is here, to help victims work through this process. We have a recovery program where we help victims completely separate from the world of scams, develop a community, be able to talk through their problems, and understand that they're not alone. You're not alone.
I know, and I think it's so good work what you make, and that is the reason why I asked the German TV to bring you in this report. That in Germany they say this in Germany, perhaps in France or other countries in Europe, because you make a really good work.
We do our best. We are a non-profit organization, and we are funded only by private donations. But we do the best that we can do. We are the only one in the world that made the commitment to help victims with real solutions, and also to try and stop this. I think maybe before I go on, I should let Debbie tell you her story, because it might help you to hear from another woman who was a survivor
Yes,
of
but
a romance scam.
sorry, I have one more question.
Okay.
I would like to ask Christina the question. I think one problem is Facebook. Facebook is a great problem. What do you think, how many scammers are on Facebook? And what should Facebook do? Or how should Facebook deal with this problem? Kannst du das nochmal fragen?
Can you tell us how big is the problem with Facebook? Because
Can I make a suggestion?
There's more user as these people on the world, and 90% from all Facebook accounts are fakes, and Facebook.
No, not so many. Not so
No,
many. Let me make a suggestion. I know this is being recorded, so Petra can edit this out. Petra, if you want to, if this would be easier to have Christina ask the question in German, you can tell us in English, Christina can say it in German, and then you would have that on the tape.
Can I ask it in German?
Well, if Petra tells us the English, yes.
Es ist bekannt, dass Facebook mehr Konten besitzt, als es überhaupt Menschen auf der Welt gibt. Und Facebook auch nichts, wirklich andersmäßig, überhaupt nichts gegen diese ganzen gefälschten Konten tut. Also im Endeffekt gerade mal dieses Scamming extrem unterstützt. Ich weiß, ihr habt in Amerika auch noch das Problem, ihr habt Tinder da. Dann gibt es auch noch WhatsApp und
yeah, okay. What Facebook is a real big problem. Facebook. What do you think should Facebook do against scammers, or is there how should Facebook deal with this problem? Do you have any ideas?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
So,
Good.
let's talk about reality for a minute. When the internet, when the World Wide Web was created in the early 1990s, publishers like my company, we had a large problem. We were scared of letting people comment on our websites or doing product reviews because we accepted 100% of the liability for every word that was said on our website. So in the United States, a consortium of companies that I was a part of created a law called the Communications Decency Act here in the United States. And this became a foundational law worldwide. What this law did is it gave immunity to website publishers, allowing anybody to say anything on their website as long as it didn't violate other laws. So the result is, it was an unforeseen consequence that we created the environment that allowed scammers to thrive. Now, Facebook is an American-based company. It exists, social media exists because of the immunity to liability that this law created for Facebook. It means Facebook is not responsible for anything that is done on their platform. Now that's the problem. The solution is actually twofold. First, Facebook is fully aware of the magnitude and the scope of the problem. A report was issued about 9 months ago that demonstrated that 50% of Facebook profiles are fake. Facebook themselves says they delete 1 billion, with a B, Facebook profiles a year. So if they're deleting 1 billion fake profiles and there's another 1 billion fake profiles on Facebook, it's a vastly bigger problem than Facebook admits to their advertisers and to their shareholders. So, in my personal opinion, Facebook is committing fraud by lying to the public about the safety of their product, by lying to their advertisers about the success of advertising on Facebook. If half of them are fakes, then half of the ad views are also fake and valueless. They're lying to the shareholders because the value of Facebook as a company is the number of real active users. If half of them are fake, then the stock is really only worth half of what it is today. So, in my opinion, Facebook is a defective product. It is a dangerous product. And as a result, government needs to engage with Facebook as though it is a defective product. For example, if Volkswagen makes a defective car, the regulators in Germany, in the United States, and Canada, even in Namibia, are going to be all over Volkswagen because of their liability for creating a defective product. No one has yet done this to Facebook. So in my opinion, personal opinion, Christina, you or anyone in the world could file a lawsuit against Facebook as a defective product. Also, when you have a dangerous product, when you buy a microwave, there are labels all over the microwave that give you warnings about the proper use and safety of that product, right? There are no warning labels on Facebook that says, warning, your use of Facebook could result in financial loss or death. Because the truth is, about 20 people a day take their life, commit suicide as a result of a romance scam. I spoke with a woman from London yesterday on Sunday who was thinking of taking her life. And we were able to talk her off of that. I've spoken with women in Burma, in Myanmar, in Hong Kong, in Australia, in Canada, New Zealand, all around the world. We have our staff monitor our messenger 24 hours a day, looking for hints, of victims that are in emotional distress to try and help them get through that moment, refer them to crises hotlines in their country. We're affiliated with a network of worldwide crisis and suicide prevention hotlines that we refer people to, and then also to get them into our support groups where they can interact with other survivors, other victims, to help them share their story, hear the stories of others, get advice, and just work through the life problems that all victims go through to be able to recover. Debbie, how long has it been since...
Debbie should tell her story now.
Okay.
But do you understand that the reason that I fight, that I give not up? I fight.
Yes, I know.
I fight, and last year that I fight for the victims.
I understand.
No.
So Debbie, you can tell Debbie, you see here, you are the woman which lost so much money, né?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I actually lost.
Sorry, we need 2 minutes for the camera change.
That's fine.
So, okay.
That's
To
fine.
become like a picture from you. They will get now picture from you because I know about you over YouTube. Wow. I have here one for it was so much. It was so much.
It was way too much. Way too much.
We need 2 minutes.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Change. Yeah.
Yes, I can figure that.
Can I talk with her?
Yes.
Wait, please wait.
I think only the camera make photos.
Okay.
Das ist doch gut, was sie sagt. Weißt du, dann haben wir das.
Dann haben wir das nicht.
Genau, warte kurz.
They say, wait. Say, wait. But anyway, it's gas make a good work. Make a really good work. And that's the reason why I have asked to become scarce in this reportage here in Germany and in other countries.
Do we have many Germans?
Yes.
Okay. I just wondered if there were many German survivors, as I call them, not victims, in the SCARS organization.
Um,
So.
Ja, super, das ist gut. Ja, genau, das will ich jetzt erzählen. Super. Und hier flexibel Sie und je nachdem.
That's really good that you
Also
have.
auch wieder die Zweier dann.
I really like
Erste, dass
the
Sie
gas.
haben und
They make the cameras a little
Okay.
bit. Ja, ich schick das. Ich verschicke mal meine Wohnung. Das ja. But one question, it's real that only 1%, how you tell it, the FBI investigate in scamming?
1%.
yeah, because she wants to go to LA and next week, and she wants to investigate the FBI in her case.
Have you been to the United States Embassy in Germany?
She made an investigation at the FBI website.
Okay.
Oh, that's a
There is actually an FBI office at the United States Embassy, and you can speak with an FBI agent at the U.S. Embassy.
At the embassy, okay, it's a good idea. So we will contact the embassy, and then in LA or where? Los Angeles, the embassy, or where is it?
Okay, so I will talk with Melanie about the process when you're in the United States, but my suggestion would be to look on Google for the FBI office in Germany. I'm assuming that it's going to be at the main embassy in Bonn.
Okay, you mean in Germany, the embassy.
Right.
The embassy, okay.
Right.
Christina already tried to go to the embassy in Bonn or in
And,
Berlin.
and ask for who? Who did you try to see?
Yeah, she already tried it and there was no result.
Okay, so
She is very active.
I will send you the contact information for the FBI office in Germany.
Okay.
They don't know ahead.
Well,
check. The number from the FBI in Germany, when you go on the website in Germany from the FBI, is 1. So you became no person.
okay.
You can ask.
I will.
I have asked the embassy from the United States, and they only say go on Gov. You know who is Gov 3, where you can make the complaint.
Yes.
Yes.
I see.
Okay.
I see.
That's only what they say. Make a complaint on Gov 3. They don't have in Germany. I have made a complaint in Germany. Because I must make and this town where I live.
Yeah.
Town where I live. I must make the complaint and.
Genau, sag doch mal, vielleicht jetzt Debby erzählen, weil deine Geschichte ist echt super kompliziert und Zuschauer kennt die auch schon, aber es wäre nochmal interessant, wenn Debby we know the story. So we would like to hear Debbie's story.
We don't know your story.
Okay.
That's the person who's right. Yeah.
Well, I, if anybody here, can feel your heart because I have been where you are. Mine happened in 2010. My husband died suddenly, and I was 51 years old. I had 4 children, and I was thrown into running his company, an international company, and I was working on my own at a school district. So I was very, very busy with work, 20 hours a day, because I didn't like going to bed at night because I was by myself. My girlfriends, after about 6 months, said, Deb, you need to get a life. You need to do something other than work. You need to have some friends. You need to get out. And I didn't want to go to, I don't drink, so I didn't want to go to bars. I didn't know how to get out in a gentle way to socialize because I was so busy at home. And so they said, go to online dating, you know, try to get onto online dating. Go to a faith-based, a church-based site maybe, with good people, honest people, and you can do it from the comfort of your home, which I did. I was actually sitting right here at my desk. And I was very cautious, and I asked a few people, you know, should I do it? Should I do it? Everybody told me that they had met their husbands online, that it was safe. My mother even said that one of her best friends met a man and married him. So my mom, you know, said, go for it. So I was very careful, and I put my profile on a faith-based site, just one. And I call it dipping my toe. I just kind of put myself out there, and I was looking for anybody between 55 and 65. And I wasn't very impressed originally. There were men in pictures in what I call a wife beater t-shirt. It was the t-shirts without the sleeves, and it just, they weren't men that I wanted. Then one day, I was contacted by a very good-looking man from England. He was an international businessman, he was a widower, he was athletic-looking, he had a young son. He was well-spoken, which most men online were not. They couldn't write. And so Eric had his PhD and I can't remember what. So he wrote to me and he said, on the website, we were on the dating site, he said he would send me an email and I would write back. So it was very slow, you know. And he said, can we move over to Yahoo Chat? Because it was like texting. Back then, that was the instant way to communicate. He told me he was in the United States at the time. He was in Houston, but he had just gotten a job in Malaysia. He was a broker for hardwood trees. Well, I own trees in Costa Rica. I understood what he did. So it was kind of exciting. I checked out the website of his company. I actually called the company, said, do you have a contractor named Eric Cole? And they said no. But I was thinking, well, maybe because he's international, he's not listed in their employee list, so let's just go with it. So Eric traveled overseas for, you know, our relationship went online for 2 years. It was online for 2 years. I never saw him in person because he was working overseas. And I got it. But I did have the ups and downs. He was coming for Christmas. We got him a hotel room. And then right before Christmas, I got the phone. There was no phone calls, but I got the message, I'm hung up, I can't come. So my heart was like yours, up and down, up and down. You know, we had good times, we had frustrating times. Most of the frustration came from he was supposed to come over here and he just couldn't. I got to know his son and his sister who were in England. I was actually messaging them. There were some nights I had Yahoo Chat messages open in England with Kenny and his sister, and with Eric in Malaysia, and with his attorney in London. I mean, it was a very interesting story. There were multiple people that I felt like I got to know because I wanted to know his family. Well, probably a few weeks, maybe a month into it, Eric said, I'm reeling back in time, he said, hey, I have a friend who's an engineer, and he's working over in, I can't remember where it was now, but he said, could you help him get online? He's having trouble getting onto the website. Would you mind helping him? Could you send a check to the company because he needs to set up a profile? And at the time, I was so new to online dating. I'm like, sure, that means more men. You know, why not? Put more men online. That's a great thing. And he was educated and whatever. So I sent a check to the online dating site, which got him a profile on the site. Well, Tim has informed me over the years that that's what scammers do because they want to look legitimate. And of course, that made me mad because I allowed a new guy to come on to be a scammer. But anyway, I didn't know that at the time. I thought my Eric was from England. he was, you know, doing work overseas, and it rang true to me because I run an international company. I got it. When he started asking me for money, I'm very frugal. I don't like to give money away, but by then I felt like he was part of my family and that I was helping him with his company. I would do that. Go ahead.
Can we ask you some questions?
Absolutely.
How was the name from your firma?
His name that he told me his name was Dr. Eric Cole, C-O-L-E, Cole. And he was from London. He was 55 years old and a widower from London.
Okay.
Okay? I believed him. It was very exciting for me to have an international businessman. He was very good looking, and I mean, from the pictures. And again, this was in 2010, and so we didn't text. That was not part of it. Most of our conversations were through Yahoo chat. I did talk to him a couple of times on the phone, and he had a British accent. So it made sense. It just fed right into his story that he was from England. Well, when Eric first asked me for money, it was a lot, but not a lot. It was $2,500. We were putting together a power of attorney. He needed some money. And again, just to kind of preface who I am, in my background, I was a paralegal. I worked for a law firm. I was a bank manager, a senior bank manager for a large bank here in the United States. I was an Air Force intelligence officer actually stationed in Wiesbaden. So I had a lot of training in scams, and I wasn't anticipating anybody scamming me. That's the thing. And when we go back to why don't the websites put more out there, I think they need to have disclaimers for any website for those of us over 50 saying, be careful, this can happen. Because I was just in my own little world thinking I was safe, I was protected, and I had this man that was in love with me. So little by little, he would just say, Deb, I need help here, I need help here. And I was so giving at that point and trusting that I ended up sending his business, who I thought, a lot of money. And it was actually over $1 million. A lot of money. I didn't have $1 million in my bank account. I came up with it. I got into my retirement accounts. I sold some of my trees in Costa Rica. I sold some of my jewelry that I wasn't wearing. I mean, I was very creative in how I came up with getting him the funds. And I always anticipated that, you know, the next time that I offered money, it would be the last time he could get through his business transactions, he could get through the legal issues that he was having, and he would finish up the project and he would get home to me. That was the thought over those 2 years. And
if I can interject, Debbie, hold up your book. Debbie actually has written her whole story in her own book.
Yeah, write a book?
I wrote a book. I wrote a book afterwards.
Actually, Debbie has written several, and one of the best things about this process that you should think about is start writing down the whole experience of the scam. Maybe you won't write a book, but just writing it down in a journal is very, very helpful.
And that, honestly, that helped me because throughout the 2 years with Eric, I actually kept an online journal. I would take all of our messages and I would paste them into my online journal, and I should have brought them down. I have 5 printed volumes, 4,000 pages of journal, of dialogue between me and Eric. So for me, it was family history. I thought my kids would read about how Eric and I, you know, ended up together, and it was just this great love story. And it turned out to be 4,000 pages of evidence, which when I went to the FBI, just like you, they were flabbergasted at the story. They listened to me, their hearts went out to me, but they looked at me and said, unless you can get him here to the United States, there's nothing we can do. And when that happened, I just shut down. The one thing that did save my heart from all this, which you may not have had, and most victims do not have this, is that at the end, Eric actually came online and he confessed in person via Yahoo chat, or, you know, kind of like Skype. He came in person, and I saw the real Eric, whose name is Joseph. And thank goodness he did that, because at that instant, my heart could separate my story from reality. And I actually took a picture of him. He's in my book. And at that point, my brain kicked in and said, now how can I stop him? How can I get my money back? And he promised me that he would send some of it to me someday. And I'm not looking to that day. I know that will never happen. But he said that he had fallen in love with me and that he just needed my forgiveness, because I think he had some sort of spiritual experience that wanted me to forgive him, so that if he, you know, had met his maker at the end, that he could say, we were okay. Now, did I forgive him? I had to forgive myself so that I could forgive him. I hated being lied to, and I feel the money was important, but in my whole lifetime, I have this feeling that I call it my last suit has no pockets. I can't take the money with me. But I was grateful that he confessed in person, because as Tim said earlier, if he had just left, just gone away, I would have felt like he had died. And it would have been worse for me than when my husband died suddenly, because now I had invested in this whole thing. And I was blaming myself in a horrible way. So I had to understand that even though when the FBI told me I had been a victim, that I'd been manipulated, I didn't want to be a victim. I don't like the word. But I did recede from life. I mean, I had my mom and dad, which I got them involved up to $100,000. They were part of this now with me. And thank goodness I had them to talk to, because I shut out my friends. I didn't tell my children. I didn't tell anybody about this, what happened to me, because I was vulnerable. I was scared. I was mad. I went through all the period of grief again. I, relived my husband's death basically, because now the money that that I was in charge of, I had given away, and I felt terrible guilt, terrible guilt. But over time, and when I started, you'll find this interesting, the way I started speaking about this was I was at a women's conference, and it was a speaker training, and I went to learn how to talk about my company. But at lunch one day, a woman mentioned online dating, and I rolled my eyes, and she said, "What's that about?" I'm like, "I don't know." She goes, "No, tell me." So I told her my story. First time ever I told my story to anybody but my mother and dad. And she said, "Deb, you need to tell, because my mother was taken for $80,000. And another woman came over, and she'd been living with a man for a year and found out that he had a family somewhere else. So many women were being taken financially, emotionally, and they're like, you have to speak up because no one else is willing to do that. And over the weekend, I came up with my story, and I've been speaking it for the last 6 years. And the more I tell it, the more women are sitting there, their heads are bobbing, they understand, they feel it, but I have healed from the inside out, and it becomes a very powerful thing for me to be able to get out there and advocate for women and men. The FBI told me more men get taken than women for over $1 million, but the men will never talk. But for women, very well educated, heart-centered, lovely, giving people are being taken by these scammers. And we can't stop them individually, but we can help another woman that has been through that. Like right now, you and I are in a special group. I hate to call it a club, but we are. But you need to know that you're not alone. And I needed to know that. And every woman that I've talked to, I've sat beside, that I've held their hand, you are not alone. Now, do we have a cause to champion? Yes. Don't get discouraged that the law enforcement doesn't understand it yet. Your family may not, your friends may not. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to say, boy, that was really stupid, you shouldn't have done that. But everybody's going to be taken sometime in their life, either by family members or friends or a scammer. We're going to be taken. And we need to own it. We need to believe that we did it out of the goodness of our heart. And it's unfortunate, but life goes on. And that's what we're here for, as a group of, again, survivors, not victims. we can go out there very methodically, very honestly, objectively, try to get the emotions out of it at some point, because people don't want to hear angry, bitter men and women out there railing against a scammer. They want to understand how it happened, why it happened, how it happened to us, and that takes some deep introspection and maybe some therapy. I had a friend who was a social worker therapist, and she sat down with me and she goes, we're going to get these emotions out of you and find out why this took place. And for me, if you know what Swiss cheese is, it's cheese with big holes. I had a big hole in me that felt like I hadn't been listened to. And my husband was a big guy, and he didn't listen to me a lot. And so when Eric was writing back to me all those years, he would listen, he would talk, he would fill me up. And that was therapy for me.
But it's also part of the manipulation.
It is.
Christina, one of the things that will help you a lot is learning how this happened to you. That you're not stupid. We human beings are designed, we're built, we're wired in a very specific way. Remember that we're still the same people that we were 100,000 years ago, when we were hunter-gatherers, when we lived in small tribes. When children grew up in the tribe, they automatically trusted everybody in the tribe. So one of the things that is normal for humans is to trust strangers. In fact, we are more likely to trust a stranger than we are to trust someone that we know.
Let me say something. I thank you, Debbie, I thank you, from start, that you make this with us, that you help us to send this in other countries in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is the reason why we have contacted you, and your story, Debbie, is on YouTube, I know.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is on YouTube, I have seen there, and I see every day the emails from stars, and when I see that they're found in the area scammers, I hope someday they found my scammer.
Well, just understand if I think I might have the picture of my scammer on my website. I do have a website called The Woman Behind the Smile.
I have two on my website. You go on my website, Debbie.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go on my website by Facebook. You can see the scammer was my family, because he's told he is my. That was a. He said he's my finance. I become many problems in Germany because he wrote on many papers, he is my finance with this child. And I have him on my website. I search my mission finance.
So my question though is, the picture that you have on your website, is it the man that you met online, or is it a real person? Because the picture of the man that you fell in love with is a victim of identification fraud.
Yes, it can be. It can be. I don't know.
You don't.
He has sent so many pictures, really much pictures.
Yeah. Well.
I don't know if the pictures. Can you steal more as 10, 20 pictures from another person?
Of course.
Yes.
Yes, easily.
So what I want to show you, is this picture here. If you can see that.
Yeah, this is from Nigeria.
That is the real scammer. Okay.
But Christina.
I talked to him in person. I mean, online.
As far as stolen photos, scammers actually buy kits from other scammers. So when a scammer becomes successful, they sell copies of their scripts, their letters, the stolen photos as a complete package. It's how to be a scammer in one easy step. And they sell these for thousands of euros each. So the reality is, usually, it's very important to remember that it is usually not one scammer. it's usually a team of scammers working together.
Yes, I know.
That's how they are available 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So that whenever you're available, one of them is always on duty. So sometimes you'll notice that, well, he's talking a little bit different right now than the last conversation, or maybe not remember things. That's because it's a different member of the scamming team. Some of these teams are actually as large as 20 or 30 individual scammers. But those are teams. There are also major scamming corporations in Nigeria where there are as many as 10,000 employees that do this. Literally, there's buildings in Lagos, Nigeria, where one floor is romance scammers, another floor is money scammers, another floor is business email compromise scams. So some of these organizations are multi-billion-dollar organizations. All total.
Yes, I know. They have scammed me with fake websites.
Oh yes.
They have sent me and worked with me with a bank website.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I think this website is a true website.
Yeah, they're very good. They're very good. And like you said, I mean, I had a fellow call me, said he was from Interpol. And they sent me letters on Interpol letterhead. And when I talked to him, I told him that I only deal with the FBI. I do not deal with Interpol. They called my home. They called my cell phone. I had to change my phone numbers. Anything public that I had up there, I changed the numbers there. They are very creative, they are very good, and they will try to get you in multiple ways. You just have to be careful and know what you're looking for. But they're professionals. Their job is to get money from us, and they do it very well. And what took 2 years for me, they're doing it in months now. So, but
yes, you are right.
No, but the picture of your man. The picture of the man that you think scammed you, he's a victim also. And we have men in SCARS that Tony, one of our, he's
right.
a 2-star Army general from the United States. His picture is being used by scammers around the world. And Tony's a victim. He's a really good man. But women are falling in love with his picture and then think that he's the scammer. But he's not. It was his picture that was taken. So be careful if the picture that you have on your website is of the man that you thought you were in a relationship with, that picture was most likely stolen. And that man is a real victim himself. And that's hard to understand. And it would have been hard for me if I had not seen the actual Eric person, Joseph. If I had not seen him, I would still be attached to my guy's picture. But I'm not. It was instantly, my story was over when I saw the real guy. So I want you to look at the picture of my real guy, and that's probably a similar man to you.
So you advise that Christina should see the real face of Robert, the scammer?
No.
No, I don't want her to.
No, we don't advise that you do any more.
Should she deal now with her scars?
Okay.
Yes.
So let me explain what the process should be at this point in time. Mm-hmm. I encourage you to do what you can with the FBI or with the police. Anything that you can do to help them better understand is all good. But there is a point at which it will become obsession, and you have to be very careful of this. I am not a psychologist, so I can't give you psychological counseling or advice. I'm an anthropologist. But the recommendation is you have to be careful to watch your own feelings about working this problem, because it is very easy to lose yourself in a new obsession, to lose yourself to anger, to lose yourself to hate. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is, at this stage, you know the scam, is real. In other words, you know that it was a real scam. You need to focus on your own personal, emotional recovery more than anything else, because you want to get back to the person that you used to be. You want to end the pain and end the hurt. And it is going to take a long time to do that. It may take a year. It might take 2 years. Every victim is a little bit different. The most important thing is that you have a counselor or a therapist there that you can go and talk to every week about this problem. Someone that you can talk to all the time to work through this emotional problem. It's not your fault, but it is what you need to do in order to get beyond it, to get past this period of pain and suffering that you're in right now. But yes, you should do all that you can do, but be prepared not to be able to get your scammer arrested. Be prepared for the money never to come back.
Yes, but that's not easy. That's
No, I know it's not.
Because I was, as the scam happened, and I have lost all the money, I was more as a half year in the hospital. And after it's happened, this didn't happen. Because you lost the trust. You cannot more trust a human.
Yes.
You cannot more believe a human because they say, yes, you must trust me, you must believe me. No, you cannot more.
Well, you can. I mean,
that is what you lose. You lost your heart, you lost your soul.
But it will come back.
it will, and that's part of my story too. Is it's amazing to me that, I mean, my scammer confessed to me in September, but in January I actually met the man that I've married. I've remarried, and what I had to understand was, and I still don't know how I could have done it, is to put myself out there. To really love someone, you're going to become vulnerable no matter what, to hurt. And I was not going to let the scammer have that power over me to keep me from being me again. And when I met my husband, within the second date, he told me something about him very honestly, and I told him about the scam. And I said, you know, if you can help me work with me through this, then you're golden. And we've been married now for almost 3 years.
However, let me
It
just...
doesn't happen a lot because I think people close themselves off to
right.
loving. And I didn't want to be that hateful person, you know? That wasn't us, it's not you. And we don't want to live that hurt and that hate, because that's not productive and that's not who you are. So you need to find someone, a friend or a trusted advisor, or, you know, scars to begin with, but someone who's been through this or has been through some hurt, and just open up and say, be my friend. Help me to learn to trust again. Because that was very hard for me to, as a trusting person, to have been lied to for 2 years. It's horrible.
Yes.
But you can get over it. I'm very cautious now. I'm a much different person in that respect than I was. But I opened my heart up again, and I have such joy in my family. And my kids were the worst. My oldest boys were the worst. When I ended up telling them, they were so angry and upset with me. But I had to own up to the story and say, guys, I did it. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I didn't listen to you. I pushed them away. But when I told them how it happened and why it happened, now we're very close. And I'm much more honest with my adult children than I ever was before. So it just takes time. It's one step at a time.
Christina, do you have a large family? Do you have children?
Yes, I have 2 children. I have a son, he is 7 years, and a daughter, he is 23 years. Yes, the first time they couldn't understand what happened, but now they have understand and help me because I became help for my child, that I'm not alone, and that I understand what's happened. Because this money, what is lost, this was the money from the child too.
Yeah. Well, my kids understand that, you know, they're not waiting around for my money because it wasn't there. But it's more important that they have you, that you can still love them and you can be open and honest with them and tell them how you're feeling. My daughter has been extraordinarily good for me, and she's recently divorced, unfortunately, with 2 small children. And when she goes out to online dating, I'm the one that's, be careful, Tinny, be careful, you know, make sure you know them. I
have hate my son in the first moment because he had said, as a scammer come in my life, I was lucky. Because she told me so much shit.
Yeah, well,
my son said, oh, you are lucky now, you are not, because I was separated from my ex.
Yeah.
And the first scammer came and make fun, make me lucky.
Yeah.
And my son then said, oh, you are so lucky now, and you are so happy. He said, now I can say you are.
But it's made you
a big shit.
It's made you very aware.
Said for the first moment, what was this man? Will you send a ring of marriage? He will send you money, and so it's for.
But now we have to close the interview because we have to do other things. We are very busy today.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
We spend all of our time on the topic of scams. You don't?
Your advices helped her a lot, and your story. And thank you very much for the information. And maybe we can have a second interview with you if you would like. If Christina is in LA, maybe she can contact you after she went to the FBI.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Now,
if it's
Christina,
possible, we can write and think about a new interview, maybe together with Mel, because she is there. She has there the hat on. But it was very interesting for me and for Christina as well.
Yes, and I think it was very good because you had so many victims of scams, only with the story and what you make every day for your emails and what the wrote is in the emails and how many frauds or scammers they have become. It helps. And I hope someday my scammer is in this picture. I hope someday, but I don't know how he look in black. I don't only know he look in white.
But you'll never know if you've never actually seen him. You know, just know that the scammers that are being arrested, it could be your scammer. So just get joy in the fact that they're arresting people, and try to heal yourself now.
Yeah, we're up to about 60 scammers in Nigeria a week now being arrested.
I have read it.
Yeah.
I have read it.
So,
That's very, very, very good. And I thank you so much from my heart that you help for this reportage for Germany and for Europe. And Mel will contact you in the USA because that she wished that the reportage go in the USA too.
Okay.
Perfect.
Bitte.
thank you so much.
I thank you too. I thank you too. Goodbye.
Okay.
Alright.
Danke.
Bye.
Tschüss.
Ciao.
Okay.
And now for the official Scars after interview party.
Are we still live?
We're still live.
After an hour and a half.
And thank you everyone for watching us live. We're going to go off the air now, and I hope that was informative and useful. Thank you for watching.